Great. I'm going to share my screen for the billboard again.
And good morning, everyone. This is Geo Scheduling Call number 4, Universal Standard Time.
Is my screen wide now?
Yes.
Okay, much better. Okay. Right, let's go through what's on the board. So support replication for Docker. This is paused at the moment because Valery is looking at Sidekick for the production incident. He didn't have that much further to go with it, and we're still targeting 12.3, but he does need to look at the production stuff first.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But given that we missed 12.1 and 12.2 on that, I think we need to be a little bit mindful that we should probably do it relatively soon so that we just make sure that whatever issues we still discover in testing can be tackled in this milestone.
Yeah, so I think for this one, that we should follow up with Valery on Monday for how far he is with the production stuff and how much more time he thinks he needs. Because if he is going to be pulled into that for the entire milestone, we have to swap it out for someone else now, and rather do that sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
I will write that down in a little note that I have here. Actually, we must write this down in the agenda doc. So I'm going to use the discussions.
Sounds good.
Because if it's in Sublime, it's might get lost. So, and also then we can have the summary thing nicely done. So. So I'll just take notes roughly and then I'll format it nicely for next time. So one is okay, second one, this one I spoke with Gabrielle and we have a demo booked for the 27th, which is Tuesday.
Yep.
I will make sure that he's doing okay with that. And Tone has picked up archive old update steps, which is great.
Yes.
And I see there is there's an MR going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really good. Right, then there's 2 blocked ones. So both of these blocked ones I've spoken to Dave Smith about because they were blocked on infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
For this one, we now have access. We already did, but we've got access to staging, so we can do this ourselves and just basically tell them what we're doing, but we can run this ourselves.
Cool.
Again, because this is Valery, we'll do this after the Docker work, but we can unblock this, and I'll put the comments on there saying as much.
Sounds good.
And it's the same with this one. This one was blocked on a problem with Petroni.
Mm-hmm.
But because we now have access to do whatever we need to do, we can look at unblocking that. So there is a larger question here about how to prioritize that work with getting DR enabled. Mm-hmm. But let's save that for the scheduling part of the call.
That sounds good.
Okay, then in development, we've got git push, warn on git push. As far as I understand, Mike was still looking at this. They'd figured out what they needed to do, and he needed to now do the merge requests.
Yes.
And there's one there to simplify that message that's coming in.
There's a work in progress. So I had a quick chat with Mike yesterday, and I think he's still on that.
Yeah.
As far as I understand, it is more involved than initially thought, but I think he is working on it.
Yeah. This one about the jobs failing in master, I pinged Mike and Ash yesterday to see if either of them could pick this up.
Mm-hmm.
I pinged them in Slack.
Oh, I think you never submitted your comment.
I'm so silly. There we go. Sorry.
No problem. I just saw it. I was just like, I think it's kind of.
I remember writing it, and I thought, how come I didn't? Maybe I did it in Slack, but no, there it is. Okay, thanks for spotting that.
No problem.
Okay. Consider alternative methods for replicating data. I spoke to Douglas earlier in the week, and he was taking a look at these alternatives. And with the proof of concept, so it's not a merge request at the moment because he's still doing the proof of concept, but the result of this would be that all of the other replicated types would then be easier to add. So if successful here, we're shaving off days off of all of the other pieces of work we need to do. So that's still going.
Yeah, so I have a comment on this. So I also spoke with Mike yesterday about breaking down an issue for verification of data. And so one comment that he had for that entire epic is that at the moment, verifying data is actually pretty hard, as in it's harder to implement than he felt it should be. And so I suggested he should reach out to Douglas because Douglas is working on these alternative methods, and then there is potentially some overlap, or at least some consideration in terms of, well, if we're looking at how to make adding new things simpler, part of that should also be verification, because that's something that we always need to do. So that's just the sort of a connecting those two things.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm just thinking if there's any action to take here, and I think it's just about asking for an update on what this looks like.
I agree.
Okay, next one. Clean up orphan project repositories. This is interesting. Why did this pop up again?
So I think this popped up. I think this was a follow-on from the bug in the front end where more than 100% of items were synced. And this, I believe, is thought to be the root cause of that actually happening.
It's interesting. So I'm just looking at what the status of this MR is, because I see sure there's a lot of discussion on this. Okay, I need to have a proper read of this merge request.
I think that would be good.
Yeah. I was also just interested, it's been connected to the object storage one as well.
Yeah, I don't understand that connection particularly well. It is maybe for projects that are actually stored in object storage and how to clean them up, but I haven't looked at it in detail.
Oh, he mentioned this in this issue. Okay, I have a lot of catching up on this one to do then. Let's just catch up on the whole thing. Okay. Okay. The next one is allow the log cursor to log to standard out. This one, if I remember correctly, was linked back to the Helm chart stuff.
I think that's right.
So okay, so Douglas is taking a look.
And I think Ash is working on that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's everything that's in progress at the moment. And tut, I haven't done this. I was going to go through and unmark all the active stuff. Okay, so the next question is the ready for development column still the most important things and in the right order?
Well, so I think the rake task to, so the first one, can you open this after this image?
Yeah, do you want to drive from here?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Let me share my screen. One second. I lost my Zoom. Can you see the board?
I see problem validation, solution validation, planning breakdown. Yeah, I see the plan board.
Okay. Can you still see it?
I see.
Or is it? Darn. Okay, 1 second.
I see a white stripe.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry, it's on my
Your other monitor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see your mouse disappears off somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, so stop this. Sorry, I have a tab confusion.
It's okay.
It's maybe certainly Friday. Okay, if I do this. That's better. There we go. Okay. This one. Okay.
Roadmap board.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that.
There we go. Okay, I can see it.
Good. Okay, so after disabling Geo truncate, I don't quite know where this popped up from.
How did the, you add?
I think so what I did is I added GeoActive here because it was marked as ready for development 6 months ago. But I think this is something that we should probably correct because this is maybe ready for development, but I don't think this is the most important thing to do next. So
I agree with that. So should we take it back into the scheduling state? Yeah.
Super. Okay, that's good because I was confused why that would show there. Okay. So I think the two top items here, can GitLab break, GitLab check be run automatically when upgrading? That should be pretty straightforward and is sort of part of the upgrade investigation. I think that should be done. We should probably do it in this order though. So Tone, I think, assigned himself already to the rake task to perform post-omnibus Geo update steps. I think that's really worthwhile doing, and I would say this is something we should do next. I think there are some questions that Tone has on how to do it, but I think this is worthwhile doing.
So, Tone, since you're on the call, are you actually actively working on this at the moment? Is Tone still on the call?
He is. I think the note you said is, I will pick this up. I want to get this door going.
I'm wondering if I should pull it into the in development column.
I can, you know what, I'll just do that because I think that feels appropriate.
Okay.
Okay. So this, I'm fine with that one. Dry checksum code up a bit. I think this is part of the
verify everything.
Verify everything bit, so that's fine. I did move, I think, something yesterday, or actually didn't. Refactor Geo node status to make more testable and enable cop. Let me see what happened here. Okay, so this is something we need to discuss. So I actually did a little bit of a sweep, and I tried to find all of the like geo items that were labeled with like labels I didn't understand. So this thing here was marked as in dev, but it didn't have anybody assigned. So I moved it to ready for development just to double check with you. I don't think this is something we need to do right now. So I would move it out again.
Yeah, I think move that out again.
To scheduling.
Yeah. Something you were looking at the dry up checksum code a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I've only thought of this now, but that's only got a weight of 1.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's refactoring with testing, is that really 1? I want a second opinion on that because there's something there. I'm just going to take a note about that. Just extracting shared code. It's like, yes, there could possibly be a 1, but I just want to double check because other refactoring tasks in the past have taken time. So
I can, if you like, I can just follow up here. This is something that I think was opened by Mike.
Yeah, so I think if Mike can just add Mike, please double check the weighting is appropriate. Thank you. Thanks.
Yep. Okay.
Because if it's going to land up being an 11, we need to talk about it. But
yes, we do. Okay. So
okay. So the cop is gone.
The cop is gone. This is fine.
Okay. Document upgrade steps.
I think this is. Let's have a quick look. I think this is something we should certainly think about. And so part of this, the archiving of old update steps, right, is part of it. And I think once that is done, I think we should just revisit this and say, like, okay, given the state it is now, are we happy with the instruction? So I think this is a relatively straightforward thing to do, but I do think it should be done.
Okay. Yep.
But it doesn't have a weight, by the way. So should I give this maybe a 2 or 1?
Maybe it's either 1 or 3. I can't remember what we agreed on the weights. Yeah, I think put a 2 on it. It's fine. I think it's a little bit more than a 1, but I don't know if it's a 3. So a 2 seems good.
Okay.
Okay. Next one.
Verify uploads on GeoPrimary. So this is. I had a discussion yesterday with Mike on this because this is an 11, so that feels very big. And I don't know if he has commented on this yet, but yesterday we essentially agreed that we should break this up into smaller issues, and also essentially the first thing that we can do, I think, is cover the simplest possible use case of checking for the file, checksumming it to cover sort of the bare minimum that should reduce the size of the item, and then we can consider all of these other interesting cases separately and do them a little bit later. So I think that was the agreement yesterday evening. I don't see any activity on this yet. So I'll take an action, or maybe you can write that down, that I will follow up with Mike just on doing it, because I would like to keep it in the board here, because I would like to have the verification epic being worked on. The next single Git URL, I think, is also fine. That's quite important. GitLab rake db reset drops, but cannot clear the database. I think this is a bug.
Yeah, and it was a permissioning thing. Yeah. Okay. So you're happy to leave that there?
Just as a bug.
Yep.
And then add configuration for secondary nodes behind the load balancer to Geo administrator documentation. My wonderful and very verbose title. I think that's also fine. That's essentially documentation upgrades.
Yeah.
But I would argue that we have still 7 tickets in here, and we have 6 in progress with a combined weight of 18. So I'm currently happy with those in here. I think the first bits here are actually, like, the first 5 are definitely really important right now, and then the other bits here, maybe less so, but we want to tackle technical debt and bugs as well. So I'm fine with this.
And you're still happy that those are the most important things?
I think the upgrade stuff will become even more important probably, but I think we do need to think about a little bit what that means and what the individual other items actually look like. But I think that the verification work is important, and that the single Git URL is something that we should do. So yes.
Okay, great.
So in the planning, let's go to scheduling. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, but at the moment we can't pull any of these over.
I don't think so, because I feel that we still have enough to work on, and we may need to do a little bit of shuffling later on. And if we look at the scheduling, so the next items are verification items that we can, I think, decide on once the upload stuff is done, followed by support for design repositories, which I think is also okay. Yeah, so I think we have a good backlog here.
Okay.
I think in terms of my my plan board, so I think there is one item that has to do with Geo HA upgrade documentation. So that's still in sort of planning breakdown, and I think that is something that I may want to accelerate a little bit more because I think there's still a few things unknown and a little bit of work to do in order to close that up.
Okay.
And then in my solution validation stage, I actually have quite a few things that I still need to work through. So check some verification in object storage, the update process. I think this is going to close relatively soon. Tone and I just need to get an agreement. And I think, yeah, I think this is fine how it went. But it's one of these issues that we created before the new process and then moved around a little bit. But it is what it is. And yeah, so there are a few interesting bits in here, but nothing too urgent. For problem validation, I think these are some, there are some interesting things in here. So for example, partial replication, restrictive, selective synchronization. I opened that yesterday. So I think in this week, I haven't done too much work on this board, but I've thought quite a bit about how these things will be affected by a potential well, it's not really a reshuffling, but it's, let's say, a more clear focus on some of the other roadmap items, right?
Yeah.
So if we, for example, look at this, so I've invested quite a bit of time writing up my thoughts on disaster recovery for GitLab.com. So I think we are in a better state in terms of, the context of why we want to do that. We had a discussion on Wednesday as well. So I think here, maybe over the next week, we have to talk a little bit about how to prioritize this, right? Because
so what I'm going to do, I have a meeting with Ash on either Tuesday or Wednesday. And I'm going to go through with him what we need to do for dr.gitlab.com. Like, how do we get that into a working state?
Yes.
He's the most recent person who's been working on that with Devon. And now that we've gotten a massive thumbs up to just get on with it, I'm going to chat to him about what exactly that means. But then we have to figure out what, from a scheduling perspective, that means, because I think then Ash will spend a lot of his time focusing on this. He'll spend time focusing on this, and we need to understand what that means for the build board.
So, for example, I can give you my high-level thoughts, right, at the moment. So I think the way the roadmap looks at the moment, we have a few things that we are doing that I think we can shuffle around a little bit. So we have a large number of items to add unreplicated data types. So that's more features in a way, which we should do. And we have one or two quite well defined, but there's also a lot there, right? So that is something that I think it's sort of chunkable, right? And we can say, like, let's focus on design repositories, on GitLab pages, and so on and so forth. So that is something that we may be able to postpone a little bit. And then the simplification of installation, I think, is something that we can, like, I'm thinking about this right now, but there's not much to do here at the moment. I rephrase, there's a lot to do, but we haven't really started. So I think I'm potentially willing to say, okay, given that we now have a better mandate for enabling GitLab.com, let's really try to get that done as fast as we can as a team. Not everything will be parallelizable. Make that a priority. I think, given recent issues, focusing or doubling down on the upgrade process and the stability of it and what we can do and can't do, right? And at least doing the things that we feel are within our remit, I think, is still important. And then this bit here, the automatically choosing the right geo node, there's actually only one actionable item at the moment for development, which is the single Git URL. But I am going to work on surveys and some user research here, so that I think is fine. This will close, but we may be able to say, okay, let's delay design repositories until we, for example, we do the GitLab.com work or we finish it. So we may need to shuffle around a tiny bit, depending on what this actually means. Because I think at the moment, my biggest question here is, how far did we actually get? And what is still outstanding? Is this, let's say, 1 or 2 months of work, so 2 releases and we get it done? Is it 3? What's the current status?
And that's what I'm hoping to start figuring out with Ash next week, is to figure out, like, I know there's going to be a whole lot of unknown unknowns as well, but at least we know where we got to and what we need to at least do next, and then we can figure out what else happens after that.
Yes.
I have, I'm a little bit concerned that there will be some things where we have to ask infrastructure to explain things and we'll need some time with them, but at least if we can go in a more focused way,
yes,
it becomes an easier thing to set up a 15-minute meeting with Devon to explain something rather than having a couple of days of back and forth.
Yeah, and I think also, and I mean, we have to be a little bit careful because I don't want to dilute the team too much. But for example, the verification of all replicated data, I think that's really important, right? But it is not something where, at least in my view, we should continuously do this and pick these things up. But if they are not parallelizable, if we can iterate and say, like, this release we did this, and the next release we did that, and then it takes one more release to finish it, that's also okay.
I almost like separating it out over the releases, because it becomes something very concrete and understandable in each release what you did.
Yes.
But I also don't want it to take forever. So
no, and I think this is the balance we have to strike, right? Because I discussed that yesterday with Mike. On the one hand, I don't want us to invest a ginormous amount of effort, but I also don't want this to take 6 months, right? And I feel that the ask of verifying the data that we replicate, is also, I think that's understandable that we should do that. And I feel that should just happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll I think invest some time today to think about this as well. I don't think our current high-level priorities on verification, the upgrade process, and the single Git URL are wrong. But we have to see, right? And there are some other things that I may want to do. For example, the selective sync for Docker repositories. I think that has high customer value. But yeah, I need to clean up a little bit. I think the one thing that I am not comfortable doing at the moment is, given where we are, I will have to do an announcement what we do for 12.4, and I will not try to add more to the pile. I think we are already a little bit behind in some areas. So I think what I will aim to do is either, pull some things away from the pile and say we are going to do them later, and then replace them with something else, for example, gitlab.com. But I don't think we can just add more at the moment. That will, I think, only be detrimental.
No, I agree with that. I agree.
Cool.
So I think then from a scheduling call perspective, that's everything that we needed to go over.
Yeah.
After this call, sorry, just let me close the window. Just give me a second.
No problem.
There you go. You can still hear them, but it's not as bad. So after this call, we can work together on putting together that summary that we were going to put in. I've started it in the Geo discussion, but it needs to not have as many spelling mistakes as that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that's been a really good call. I was thinking we could stop the recording because there were some other things I wanted to go over with you that are separate. So are you happy with that?
I am happy with that.
Cool. I'm going to stop the recording.